I call the Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm just going to focus on there's so much, in fact, indeed, that we could debate about this bill. I'm just going to focus on the Minister's own SOP here, proposed amendments. It goes to 28B here, charging hirer for infringement fee. This is basically a situation where you have a foreign visitor, say from Finland. They've come over there, husband and wife, and they've hired a camper van, and they've come here. Their knowledge of English is not that great, but they've ended up, for some reason or another, camping in the wrong spot, in their camper van. Doesn't matter whether they didn't do anything, they just camped in the wrong spot. So they've left and they've gone back home. And so the rental company gets an infringement notice because someone's found the number plate, driven past, the poo police, whoever they are. This is the person with the bit of paper who won't be respected in Northland. They won't be on the West Coast either, but the poo police have come along and got a registration number of a vehicle, and they've sent it to the rental car company because it's a Maui camper van or some other camper van. I don't like to raise brands. I'm sure I'm not trying to in any way imply that one brand is better than the other or worse. But anyway, they get notice of an infringement notice. So they send a copy, and if I can quote from the SOP, this is the wisdom coming from the department after the first bill, recognising there are mistakes, but saying, we will improve the bill. So it says that the company may not exercise an authority under a rental service agreement to debit the hirer's credit card unless, within 5 working days of receipt of the infringement notice, the rental company A sends a copy of the infringement notice and the rental service agreement to the permanent address provided by the hirer in the rental service agreement. So imagine this. You get a notice. So the first question is you've got to send a copy of this to the person from Finland. Now, is it to their email address or is it to their residential address? This is because this is what the law says. They're not allowed to do it for 5 days, and then they have to send it through to the permanent address. So I'm taking from that it will mean sending a letter to the permanent address. Now, I don't know how long it takes to get a letter from Wellington to Finland or to some little town in Finland, but they've got to send it up there then, and so it's somewhat archaic not to have provision there for email contact. It doesn't say so. It says to the permanent address. Is it an email address? Is it a residential address? Maybe the Minister can clarify that. Then notifies the hirer that if the rental company receives a reminder notice for that offence, the rental company will debit the hirer's credit card. But then if they do not receive an infringement notice for the particular offence, but receives a reminder notice for that offence, the rental company may not exercise the authority to debit the hirer's credit card. This is, how do we get the money? Because if you put in place stupid legislation and stupid penalties that can't be enforced, then people are just going to carry on, go out of the country. Or maybe, are they going to be held up at the border because someone says, oh, there's a notice come up, you're not allowed to leave the country because you camped here and you haven't paid the fine? Will it go that far? This sounds like a wonderful recipe for Kiwi hospitality. I think not. This kind of ridiculous situation. Then it goes on to say that the rental company has to send a copy of the reminder notice and the rental service agreement to the permanent address again. The point being, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to go on and on and round and round, but the whole thing is ridiculous. The whole thing is absolutely ridiculous, and this is a process to get what? Is it $200 maximum? Maybe? And then, of course, there's an ability to challenge. And the person from Finland may have a legitimate defence to say that they didn't understand English, the sign might have been knocked over. Who knows? This is 5, 10, 15, 20 days, a month after they've left New Zealand. And we're chasing them around for a small fine in the hope that this will be the big incentive to behave better, Mr. Chairman, to behave better when camping on conservation land. Mr. Chairman, Can I
The Honourable Damien
full call. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to. I guess if people out there, are getting somewhat confused, it's because the legislation is confusing, quite frankly. And once again, we are taking a sledgehammer to crack a walnut. This is all because a camper van has parked in a place where there's a nice view, but some council has decided that they don't want people parking here overnight, regardless of the fact that they've got a fully self-contained unit, and they have been fully aware and compliant with every other law in the land. But this new Freedom Camping Bill has said, well, the council or the councillors can decide that you're not allowed to stay there. So unfortunately, the person from Finland hasn't been able to read the Herald. They don't go online that often. They probably don't think the Herald's worth reading that often. So they haven't had early notice or consultation of this particular area being out of bounds. And I have to say that in summary, the signage in this country is generally not up to scratch. If you're trying to drive around and find a place, then the signage on an international comparison is pathetic, I have to say. People get lost, they don't know where they're going. So I doubt that the signage for this will be sufficient to allow someone from Finland or a foreign-speaking country to understand fully what is going on here. There are international signs, I guess. There's the skull and crossbones. I guess that might be the one that aptly applies to this piece of legislation. And no doubt there might be a way, but the finer points of for how long or where, or if I'm not allowed to park here, where do I go, 200 metres or whatever, this will be such a confusing situation for people who came to this country expecting to be able to wander around in their fully contained camper van, that it will be completely contrary to what they were told about New Zealand, what they understood a holiday in this country to be, and then, to top it off, they'll have in the mail notices from New Zealand demanding the Finnish equivalent of $200 or thereabouts for parking in a spot that they probably didn't even remember. Mr. Speaker, this is just ridiculous, and we should not support it, and we should get on and do the wise things about improving knowledge of reducing our impact on the environment when we're camping, regardless of where it is.